Good afternoon, Rotarians, and welcome to today's meeting. I hope everybody noticed it is a beautiful day outside, and I don't know about you, but my snow is gone, and I'm ready for spring, so I'm sure it's coming. Today we're going to have a great meeting. We have Justice Sharon Kennedy as our keynote speaker, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Welcome. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but a lot of people are looking forward to this.
I'll do my best.
Okay. As we get this meeting underway, can I ask Chuck Mann to join us with the reflection, and then Chad Rutkowski for the pledge, please.
This is titled The Lord's Prayer, and I'm sorry, but it's author unknown. Let us pray. Dear Lord, as I walk this day in the paths of my profession, let me be kind to those who lean on me, loyal to those who confide in me, true to those who trust me, fair to those who oppose me, and honest in every way to everyone about everything. Most of all, Lord, help me to seek justice no matter where it may lie or where that quest may lead me. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. Travis Tangeman, would you join us at the podium, please? I know.
Good afternoon. On November 1st, our club, our community, and our world unexpectedly became dimmer. An irreplaceable friend to so many in our club, myself included, tragically left this world. Sean Cree was easily the most unique, most loyal, hardest working, kindest, most joyful, and sincerest person I have ever had the privilege of knowing. He was irreverent and never took himself too seriously, qualities that are in high demand these days. His mom recently said Sean had two speeds, all out or asleep. I don't think anyone can argue that. Due to his work schedule, Sean rarely came to Monday meetings. For those of you who may not have had the chance to meet him or get to know him, I'm sorry. You missed out on an opportunity to know and love a truly wonderful example of what it means to be a human and a Rotarian. If you ever needed anything, be it a helping hand or just a friend to go shoot the shit with, Sean was there in an instant. Now don't get me wrong, Sean was no saint. But he had the heart of an angel, the work ethic of an ox, and he had the ability to immediately light up any room he entered. I'm confident the vast majority of you know exactly when you first met Sean. To say he made an impression is an understatement. My wife Tracy was telling the story the other day of when she met Sean for the first time. A group of Rotarians gathered at Sakura up on Monroe Street to celebrate some holiday cheer. I had prepared her for the moment, and as we walked in, there was this guy wearing the most obnoxiously bright blue suit with large snowflakes printed on the fabric. She approached him and cheerfully said, "You must be Sean." I know so many of you here know exactly the suit I'm talking about and the several other iterations he donned over the subsequent years. I'll never look at one of those suits the same way ever again. Over the far too brief time that we knew him, Sean became part of our family. My daughter, Bryn, thought of him like a big brother, and Tracy and I thought of him like the little brother we never had. There will be a hole in our lives that will never be filled, and I know there are so many of you here today that have that same hole left in your lives. So in memory of Sean, I ask you to go out and try to exemplify him in our club and in this world. Be kind, Be joyful. Be irreverent. Be helpful. Don't take yourself too seriously. Work hard, but also play hard. And most of all, think of others as much or even more than you think of yourself. Sean did, and he will be sorely missed, but never forgotten. Rest in peace, my friend.
Travis, thank you very much. We're all going to miss Sean. He's an amazing, amazing young man. Gone far too early. And did that guy have a smile, and could he make me laugh? Just as we move on with our meeting today, our sponsor is Hartman Associates. They're the sponsor for the month, and thank you very much. It's very generous. We appreciate it. Bob Amthor, you must be out there somewhere. And I think you're going to welcome visiting Rotarians.
That I am, President Tim. We have one visiting Rotarian today. If you would stand when we announce your name and be greeted by President Tim. It is Susan Reese of the Perrysburg Rotary Club.
Welcome, Susan. I've been to the Perrysburg Rotary Club. While it's not nearly as good as this club, it's a great club. I would like to invite members to come and introduce guests.
President Tim, fellow Rotarians, today I have with me as a guest Karen Slowinski, who is Business Development Director at the JDI Group.
Welcome.
President Tim, my guest today is Shaukat Rashid. Shaukat is a nephrologist with the Toledo Clinic for the past 15 years. And other distinction he has is he and I went to the same college. The college is Zamindar College in Gujarat, Pakistan. Thank you.
Welcome.
Fellow Rotarians, my guest today is Danielle Johnson, the Development Manager of Leadership Toledo.
Welcome, Danielle.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. Today my guest is Elena Starrett of Advanced Staffing Group.
Elena.
President Tim and fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Josh Erd, who is the Executive Director of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes organization.
Josh, welcome.
Good afternoon, President Tim, fellow Rotarians. I have the pleasure of introducing my wife, my significantly better two-thirds, Julie, who goes by Julie Verling professionally and works for Pomadica Toledo Hospital with a master's in social work from Michigan.
Hey, Kurt, before you sit down, Kurt. Wait a minute, just a second. Just a
Yes,
question. So I know that you're a member,
Yes,
but what if we like your wife better?
that would be okay.
Okay,
I'd be all right with that. I like her better than me, too. So there would be no different.
thank you, welcome.
Your Excellency, fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce Brian Arbaugh of Miller Diversified.
Brian, welcome.
Professor and fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce my friend, maybe bailed already, my friend Tom Blank, who is a partner at Shoemaker, Lupin Kendrick. He also stands behind me in choir. Tom sings second bass.
Tom, welcome.
Good afternoon, President Tim and fellow Rotarians. My guest today is my friend John Van Sluten. When he is not the head coach of the Ottawa Hills 6th grade girls basketball team, he moonlights as partner and wealth manager at Kingsview Partners here in town.
Welcome, John. Welcome to everyone, and especially our guests, and we hope you enjoy the meeting, and we'll come back. Just a few announcements from the podium. As everyone knows, we're having our annual holiday party on the 6th of December, and that's going to be at the Toledo Country Club. Look forward to seeing you there. It's always a great event. Additionally, moving on, we have some really good news. For the 20 under 40 recognition recipients this year, 2 of them are Toledo Rotarians, Kevin Mullen and Rachel Gagnon. I don't know if Rachel's here or not. That's an amazing accomplishment, and we're looking forward to great things out of not just the people that received it, but all of the people that were nominated. And of that, we have 10 others, members that were nominated for the 20 under 40 awards. And if I could ask them to stand and be recognized. Rashad Bannister, would you stand if you're here? Ali Effler, are you here? Shireen Murad, Dennis Schwan, Frank Viviano, Ford Bennett, Dan Ebert, Adam Nightingale, Sarah Swisher, Danny Woodcock. Thank you very much. As you take your seats, I just want to say that because of your service, you deserve these awards. And I want to say how proud the Toledo Rotary Club is of each and every one of you for the leadership and the contributions you've made to our community. One more round of applause. Kathy, would you come to the podium, please?
I'd be delighted. Thank you, President Tim, fellow Rotarians. Great to see everyone today. So let me just say this. On your tables, I know you all see this wonderful, beautiful new directory that I'm very proud of, even if it is November 18th. I'd say it's pretty good for a new concept. And what I wanted to say, especially piggyback on President Tim, as I started thinking about it, with the 20 under 40 group, I attended that event. It was wonderful, and we had 12 nominees from our club, and these represent the future of our club, which is very important to me. So then I started looking back in this directory and looking at our community leaders now. And so some of this I may have a little off, but I think I'm pretty close, so you can correct me later. But I think Dick and Walt Churchill were both 30 years old when they joined the club. So these young professionals are the ones who are going to continue with our club. Clint Mock, who recently passed, I think he was about 30. Tommy Romer was 28. Brad Rubini I show as he was 24. Hunt Sears was 29. Butch Kruger was 30. Tom Backoff was 32. According to my math, Chuck Stocking was 34. Eric was 32. So I just think that symbolizes where we're headed, and I just wanted to thank those, or recognize those 20 under 40 as future leaders in our community and members of our club. So the directory, I'm very proud of it. There's one for everybody on the table, so just take one and we'll take what's left behind. It took a long time, and I want to thank Katie Hahn. I don't think she's here today, but she knows how to do all those spreadsheets and things that gets this to the printer. I also want to acknowledge that this directory, for the first time, didn't cost the club anything. And that's one of the things I really want to acknowledge, because we had sponsorship. So we actually made a little bit of money, but I think if we go back to Paul Harris, why he originally started Rotary was to do business with like-minded people. And I'd just like for you to look through this, and also I'm sure there's mistakes in it. You can let me know what's not right. We did the best we could, and we'll improve on it in future years. But people who stepped up and made sure that this happened, the Greater Toledo Community Foundation, V&A Risk, Toledo Opera, Impact Employment Solutions, Black and White Transportation, Hospice of Northwest Ohio, Max Reddish, licensed realtor with Dan Bear Realtors, Manpower, Two Scale, Top Hat Valet Parking, Isabel Financial Services, Better Business Bureau, Citizens National Bank, Sidon Lebanese Grill and Bakery, Inclusivity, and Hartman and Associates. So I just want you to note that they're all in here and supporting this club. And last but not least, you probably noticed at the front table today, we have a new club administrator. I want to introduce her to you, Abby Mortimer Sachs. I don't know where, oh, she's at the doorway. So welcome her. I think she did a terrific job today. She knew how to print the badges. I thought that was a big deal, and she knew how to operate the square. And so those are little things, but they're very important things that I don't have to think about. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I look forward to more members in that book next year. It's very important for us, all of us, to be out, inviting people that would be fine members. Keep in mind, we can use some more members. Tommy Romer, you always look 28 to me, no matter what anybody else says. Abby, wherever you are right now, welcome. Good luck with your new job. Father O, would you join us at the podium?
I am pleased to introduce to you the Rotary Youth Scholar, the ambassador, who is studying at St. Francis de Sales School. The only thing I will tell you about him, that he will not say for himself, I'm sure, is that he is earning all A's and B's, taking honors and advanced placement courses. So please welcome Pedro Ferlin.
Thank you, Father O. Thank you, President Tim. And don't be like that. Yes, I'm studying in St. Francis. My name is Pedro, and I'm from Brazil. I'm staying here for 1 year, and I got here 3 months ago, and I'm leaving in July, maybe July 10-ish. And it's been such a wonderful experience, and seeing snow for the first time, going places that I never thought I would be. And it's such a different world, like getting out of your comfort zone and going to a place that you don't fully understand the language, you don't know anything about it, and it's just incredible. It's the best thing that I could do. So thank you for everything, for Rotary Club, for everything that you guys are doing for me, for all the Rotarians and all the members, and that's just amazing, and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Pedro, I'm so glad that you're here. I know a number of Rotary Youth Exchanges that are a little bit older than you, and all the ones that I know have done well in life. Good luck to you. Brian Kennedy, would you join us at the dais? Thank you.
Thank you, President Tim. On behalf of the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation, it is my pleasure today to present a grant in the amount of $5,000 to the Alliance for Pair Donation. This grant provided partial funding for a kidney transplant that took place in Rome, Italy, and it was through the connections of Dr. Reese and our own connection with Pastor Terry and Sister Mary Ann Colbert. Our International Services Committee received the grant request, participated in the vetting process, and made the decision to recommend grant approval to our club board and to the foundation trustees. It is due to the countless Toledo Rotarians who give unselfishly, which enable us to provide these grants. Thank you to everyone here who continues to support our Toledo Rotary Club Foundation, so we may continue to aid in supporting the needs of our community. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Michael Reese, CEO of the Alliance for Pair Donation, to come to the podium and to share a short description of how our foundation's grant gift of $5,000 has helped his organization.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you again. You may recall that I spoke here in the past about a beautiful idea that started here in Toledo, Ohio, where we create pay-it-forward chains of transplants. When people love each other and wish to save the life of somebody that they love, but they don't match them, we allow them to give to a stranger so that a stranger can save the life of the person that they love. We call this a pay-it-forward concept. And Pedro, you remember to pay it forward when you have your education in place and you're ready to go on, take advantage of the wonderful opportunity. And I'm going to tell you a little story here about how the Rotary helped a Toledo nurse to pay it forward. So we had this woman named Lisa Wilson who was at the end of one of our chains. Somebody that she loved had received a kidney and she was waiting to give her kidney. We didn't have a match in the United States, but we did have a match for somebody who was very difficult to match in Italy. And we asked her if she'd be willing to go there and donate her kidney to somebody in Italy because we hadn't worked out the finances to bring somebody from Italy to the United States yet. And she agreed with one condition, that she could go there and check out the hospital. So this is her first arrival there. This is her checking out the hospital. She actually does that professionally for the state of Ohio. She felt that it was a very safe place for her to go. So we returned there a couple of times. Here's a picture of her going back in front of an Italian judge to make sure that what she was doing was appropriate, and the judge said, "This is a beautiful thing you're doing. Good luck." There's a picture of her kidney being transplanted. There's a picture of the team that carried out the transplant. It takes a lot of people to put something like this together. There's a picture of the supportive team that came together. The woman in the middle with the white shirt received the 7th Global Kidney Exchange, where somebody from Denmark came to the United States to receive an American's kidney, and a Danish person gave to an American. Next to her is Marisol from Mexico, our 2nd recipient, whose cousin gave to an American, and she received an American's kidney. And now Lisa, sitting there next to my wife, Susan, the Perrysburg Rotarian, is the one who donated her kidney. This is her with her surgeon, Jacopo Romagnoli, and this is the recipient of her kidney with his surgeon, Franco Sotirio. So I'm pleased to tell you that your investment to cover some of the expenses that were involved in making all of this happen has led now to a pilot program that the Italian government has agreed to do in partnership with the University of Toledo, where we're going to bring 10 patients from Italy to the United States, here to Toledo, and transplant them with financial support from the Italian government. So well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reese, for all that you've done. How many kidney transplants have you personally participated in, or your students?
I've done a little over 800.
So 800 people are alive because...
I wish they were all alive, but 800 people live longer. Most of them are still alive.
Thank you for what you do and what you've done, and for allowing us to participate in it. It's very, very important. Bob, would you join us at the podium to introduce our speaker?
Thanks, President Tim. It's my honor today to bring to Toledo Rotary an old friend. Ohio Supreme Court Justice Sharon Kennedy began her career in the justice system as an officer for the City of Hamilton Police Department. Following her time on the police force, she obtained her law degree from the University of Cincinnati College of Law and entered into the legal field as a sole practitioner. During her time in private practice, she was also a part-time magistrate for Butler County courts, as well as a special counsel to Ohio Attorney General Betty Montgomery. She was elected Butler County Court of Common Pleas Domestic Relations in 1999, served as administrative judge until 2005, and in 2012 was elected by the Supreme Court. Sharon, Rotary welcome for Sharon Kennedy, please.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to come back today, and thank you for being Rotarians. I've spoken to Rotary groups around the state of Ohio, and I am impressed at all of the good deeds they do, from their local communities to internationally, making sure that polio never afflicts another individual, or making sure that young people have fresh water to drink, because that is the life-sustaining blood for their village. Thank you for being Rotarians and for all you do here and around the globe. When I was asked to come and speak, I came to speak about the Ohio Supreme Court and you, how we are really connected to the judicial system. But in order to do that, I really have to take us back in time. You have to understand how we are connected. April 18th of 1775, when the shot heard round the world was fired. It was a result of the Redcoats marching out of Boston to arrest two men and seize the munitions in Lexington and Concord. It was there in declaring our independence that it began. It would not be until July 4th of 1776, some 15 minutes later, that we would actually declare our independence from the king. You see, they tried to negotiate and resolve the dispute. And when it became too great, too strong, and declaring their independence on that July 4th date, the second sentence, most quoted, and oftentimes wrongly, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Those words enshrined in the Declaration of Independence are protected against by the overreach of government by our Constitution. Ratified June 21st of 1788, it would become effective March 4th of 1789. In the grand founding document of the United States Constitution are many layers of separation of powers, too many to discuss today. But the overarching scheme of the United States Constitution is the separation of powers between three separate but co-equal branches of government. The founders could have given us any kind of government. They had seen monarchies. They had seen dictatorships. They had seen a pure democracy where populist rule reigns. They did not give us that. As you said the words of the Pledge of Allegiance today, did you hear the words in it? "And to the republic for which it stands." That's what they gave us. The first ever original constitutional supremacy form of government that gives life to America is based on those principles of separate but co-equal branches of government and allowing our republic to live. It is a republic because we, the people, are the voice of government. And while it might not always feel like that, we control the government with our vote. In November, when you go to elect the men and women who serve you in Washington or in Columbus or locally, you are the voice of government. You are the republic. You also have the ability to pick up the phone and say there should be this law but not that law. You have the ability to shut down the phones in Washington or in Columbus to hear your voice, to make sure that they hear your will. That is what the republic is all about. The executive branch in the grand document is really to go forth and give effect to your voice, to enforce it when it need be. But the third branch of government in the founding document was given a separate role. Think about the time of the founding of our country. The colonists didn't have the grand device that we have, iPhones and the like. They read, whether in newspapers or pamphlets. But it was the Federalist Papers that really began the conversation. 3 men wrote the Federalist Papers. Alexander Hamilton wrote the beginning of the federal judiciary, and it begins in Federalist Paper 78. The colonists, imagine, were very concerned with what would happen to the Republic in the event that unelected for-lifetime members would seize the mantle of government, would undo the Republic. As Alexander Hamilton writes in the most quoted of all Federalist Papers by courts or politicians, the judiciary is explained as this: they will neither have will nor force. We would neither have power of the collection of the taxation purse. We would neither have control over the standing armies, with those powers being given, one to the legislative branch and one to the executive branch. Alexander Hamilton wrote that judges would have nothing more than reason and judgment. Before our own statehood, it is important to note that even before the United States Constitution is ratified and given effect, there is a document that you should celebrate every year. It is the Northwest Ordinance. It is the only founding document that was ratified by 100% vote of the colonists. The Northwest Ordinance gives birth to our great state, as those men who served in the War of Independence could not be paid. They were given free land, and in they came through the gateway of Marietta. On July 13th of 1787, and the Northwest Ordinance was ratified, it is important to remember 3 specific things. There could be no less than 3, but no more than 5 states in the Northwest Territory. Religious freedom must be protected by all new states, and their originating constitutions must protect religious freedom. That no government shall establish nor prohibit religion. And the other thing never really discussed in the Northwest Ordinance is the prohibition against the expansion of slavery. Think about it. At a time where the United States Constitution did not prohibit slavery, a Northwest Ordinance ratified by all prohibited it. But those is the founding, and that is the founding of the great state of Ohio. When we reached a certain population, we could become a state as ratified and signed by those members in Congress. And in 1803, we became a state. But our Constitution, while mirrored after the federal Constitution, looks a little bit different because Article 1 is our Bill of Rights. Article 2 is our voice, the legislative voice. It is our voice that controls the General Assembly in Columbus, 99 members in the House, 33 members in the Senate. And it is Article 3 of the Ohio Constitution that gives effect or a voice to the executive branch. But the 1803 Constitution isn't the same as it was after the great debate of 1851. The governor had serious power over all of the arms of government, and we stripped the governor of much of that mighty power in 1851 and redistributed that core central power to other actors. And it is there that we, the people, decided that we would seize the mantle of the right to vote for judges. The word spoken in the Constitutional Convention as it relates to our ability to vote for judges is very small. I ask you all to go find it online and read it, but it is perhaps the gentleman from the county of Fairfield, Mr. Robertson, who, and I'm paraphrasing here, best states why we should vote for our judges as opposed to the lack of transparency in the appointment by the legislative branch. And that is because that we have long understood the power of our right to vote in this democracy. the ability to hold elected leaders accountable to us, to ensure that there is no overreach among them and into our voice as housed by Article 2, our voice, our representative voice. In so stating, he said, "So we shall too hold judges accountable to us." And in 1851, you achieved the right to vote for your judges. Article 4 of the Ohio Constitution sets forth our justice system. It originated with one Supreme Court of Ohio and those lower tribunals as the General Assembly shall create. I made an educational book. I'm a visual learner. Still to this day, it's better to see it on a paper, to be able to underline it and read it, for me to retain it. So I made an educational book that I take to grade schools, junior highs, and high schools. And I pass it out, and this is the inside cover. It really talks about the basic form of the Ohio Constitution, where these independent, separate but co-equal branches of government achieve their power, and how you can find them as well. But the second part of the book, the inset, really sets forth then the judiciary, the justice system across Ohio. And it may look different in all of the counties because we are not of all like and size. But these are our systems. As you begin to look at the court system as a structure overall, everyone starts with mayor's courts. But it's not really a court of record. You can be an elected mayor and not be a lawyer. You can be elected mayor and sit in judgment of your own cases, but it can only be those cases in which an ordinance of your city is controlling. And if someone objects or seeks a trial, it leaves that court into a true court of record. Mayor's courts are functionally different. But across Ohio, if you ever have the opportunity to shake the hand of a judge that works at a municipal court or county court, shake their hand and thank them for their service. They are the backbone of the Ohio judicial system. Judges who sit in those lower courts will hear more cases than any other judge across Ohio. They will hear 1.7 to 2.1 million cases a year. Why the number? They handle most traffic cases. We are more likely to step inside a municipal or county court as a result of a traffic offense than anything else. And that experience for us, for all Ohioans, it really kind of solidifies our judgment as to what we think about not only the judicial system, but judges as well. I always thank the municipal court and county court judges when I encounter them because I recognize the significant work that they do. Beyond traffic tickets, they do criminal charges, and they can keep those in their jurisdiction as long as the penalty, misdemeanor of the first degree, maximum 6 months in jail, $1,000 fine. But they also do civil litigation. Any civil controversy less than $25,000 can be filed in their court. They also do forcible entry and detainer, which is eviction law. But they can also do small claims, where I, as an ordinary citizen, can take out a piece of paper, write my complaint, and try my case in a tribunal. The next level up from there is the Court of Common Pleas, and it is functionally different everywhere. I can take you to Ohio in a small county where one judge will serve all divisions. Or I can take you home to my county in Butler, and I can show you where all of the divisions have different judges. The general division is what I call the sexy court. They are always on the front page of the newspaper. They're doing the big civil litigation, anything above $25,000, and they are doing the felony cases. They are trying those serious cases to which get press notoriety, death penalty cases, rapes, murders. Those are the kinds of criminal cases that they hear that we as citizens wish to read about. You have domestic relations court. I sat in a domestic relations court for 14 years, every day, trying cases of families that were ending a marriage. or at least looking for a separation. Domestic relations judges hear dissolution, divorce, annulment, and legal separation. And then comes to me the hardest court, juvenile court. To me, the judges who sit in juvenile court to sit in judgment of our youth have the most difficult job. They have a difficult job because they have to examine the life of a young person. And have we reached a threshold at which we cannot save them? That we have not been successful in rehabilitating them in our communities, that we have to send them to the Department of Youth Services, knowing this, that in the minute they enter that system, they are more likely to go on to the adult court criminal system. But I also find that they have the most difficult work because of the other work they do. They do paternity cases, deciding custody and support issues for those who have had children out of wedlock. And then the abuse, neglect, dependency docket. I cannot believe there is anything more painful to witness than the onslaught of cases where a young child has been sexually abused or physically abused, who has been neglected, uncared for, and who is dependent through no fault of their parent because their parent cannot make a sustainable life. They do the hardest work, in my opinion, in the justice system. And then the happy and the sad court, probate court. It's the happy court because what could be more happy or happier than adopting a child into a new family? And it's the sad court because they will preside over will contests where families cannot agree. And in the end, they also stand in hearing those cases of guardianship, both for the mentally ill and for the aged unable to care for themselves. And they will stand in judgment and make sure we are protecting them. Across Ohio, the Court of Common Pleas collectively will hear 700,000 to 900,000 cases. But those courts don't have the final say. And we just do round numbers for my simple math skills. Let's call it 3 million. At the next level of the intermediate appellate court system, once you leave these two trial court systems, is the appellate court system. There are 12 appellate courts across Ohio. If you come to Butler County with me, I sit in the 12th District Court of Appeals. But if you go down to Cincinnati, they're the 1st District Court of Appeals. And up here, you go into the 6th District Court of Appeals. It's different across Ohio, but only 3 counties have their own appellate court. Cuyahoga County is the 8th District, Franklin County is the 10th District, and Hamilton County is the 1st. All of the other counties are divided up based on population to feed into a district. But think about that 3 million, and then think about how many make it to the intermediate appellate court. 7,000 to 9,000 a year. 3 million to 7,000 to 9,000. Now there's 2 answers for that. Either every single case tried by the lower court tribunals are perfect, flawless, and no one disagrees, or there's something else going on. By a show of hands, who believes it's perfect and flawless? Who believes there's something else going on? As in all audiences, there is something else going on. And it really comes down to the cost of litigation. If you are an indigent criminal defendant and you have been tried in a lower court, you have an automatic right of appeal, and we, the taxpayers, will pay for counsel to represent you. Now, I started my career as a police officer, and after I left law enforcement and graduated law school, I myself served as a criminal defense attorney. I actually did some of the appellate work for some of those cases in the 12th District Court of Appeals. They have that right to that first appeal as a result of the taking of their liberty, the protection of the 4th and 5th Amendments and the 6th Amendment and the right to counsel. But past that, it is something else. All civil litigation requires someone to shepherd that burden, So if you have had a case in the trial court and the outcome of your civil case wasn't what you wanted, you have the ability to go to the next step. But it will be on your dime, because there is no automatic right to a civil appeal. That's where the divide comes. But then in the last page of my educational book is what we ourselves do at the Ohio Supreme Court and our responsibility. Most of our cases come from the Constitution itself. Some come from statute, because the General Assembly has the power to assign to us certain jurisdictions. But what the Ohio Constitution gives to us, writ actions, habeas corpus, mandamus, quoruanto, precedendo, prohibition, review as necessary for a complete determination, and the admission and the practice of law cases. Appellate jurisdiction in 1994, voters across Ohio changed the Ohio Constitution and decided that we should hear all death penalty cases from the trial courts, stripping out the intermediate appellate courts across Ohio. So now those cases go from the trial court directly to the Ohio Supreme Court. And then the Ohio Constitution gives us the ability to take in a discretionary appeal, as long as it fits the commandment of the Constitution. It must be a matter of great general or public influence or effect. As a result of that, we get to choose. In an average year, we will read 1,900 to 2,200 cases a year. 1,800 of those will come out of that box, of the jurisdictional box, where it takes 4 votes to bring it into the court. All the rest will come to us and flow to us by way of the Constitution and/or statutes. As a result of that, we'll write on about 300 cases. But the importance of the Ohio Supreme Court is we are the court of last resort across Ohio. We will decide the fate of the law, whether the law is constitutional or not. And if it isn't, and we invalidate the law, we do not get to rewrite it. In keeping with the tenets of the Federalist Papers, number 78, I neither have will nor force. The Ohio Constitution gives me reason and judgment. But it is a personal philosophy as a jurist what you choose to be. There are some believe that they should be activists, give effect to the law, the way that they believe it should be designed in order for outcome-based determinations. I am not one of those. I believe that our voice, our collective voice, begins and ends in the first box, our republic, our legislative voice. That if there is a statute that we declare unconstitutional, school funding, for example, it goes back to the legislature to fix. I don't have the ability to impanel commissions, to take testimony, to rewrite the statutes in the grand scheme of what you wish. That's your representatives. That's your representative voice. All I have the power to do is to declare it constitutional or not, to give effect to the words used in a statute. And if the General Assembly has defined the words, even if I disagree with them, I have to apply the definitions they have provided for in the statutes, and to give common and ordinary meaning to the rest of the words in the statute to determine their intent. That is my sole focus as a jurist at the Ohio Supreme Court. I liken it in my belief of the words of President Reagan. At the investiture ceremony for Chief Justice William Rehnquist and Antonin Scalia, he started the great debate. What is it that members of the third branch of government should do? In his view, and in that speech, he tells the citizens of the United States that it is not a question of whether or not we have liberal or conservative courts. The Constitution is not liberal or conservative. It was written for all men to live free of government restraint. But the question of the proper role of the judiciary is that it is judicial restraint, that they do not have a third voice. They cannot put their thumb on the scale of justice to create an outcome because they think this person more deserving of an outcome than what the law declares. They don't get to rewrite the law or legislate from the bench and alter our voice, because if they do that, we lose the republic. In all honesty, it is you and you alone that control the judicial branch. Every year, you have the opportunity to learn about the men and women who seek office to run for your judiciary. Whether in off years where you elect municipal and county court judges, or in even years where you elect appellate judges, common pleas court judges, and justices who serve at the Ohio Supreme Court. It is your opportunity to exercise your voice, as Mr. Robertson of Fairfield County so eloquently said, to hold us accountable to what you believe the proper role of a judge in our justice system is. As a result of this and your founding documents, both the United States Constitution and the Ohio Constitution, you and you alone have control over the judiciary. And I hope you join me in making sure that you exercise your control over it and vote every November. Regardless of how you vote, it's the act of voting to me that is paramount. Not everyone will vote. And I hear it across Ohio with Sharon, it's just too hard to know who I should vote for. Well, okay, maybe before the internet, you had that as an option. But the wide world of web gives you the opportunity to Google names and actually do a little bit of education and educating yourself and your family members about who's running and why it might be important. In the federal system, it is the president, as confirmed by the Congress, the Senate, that actually controls the judiciary and the federal system. Ladies and gentlemen, you and you alone are the president and the Senate when it comes to who serves you in the Ohio judicial branch. As a lawyer, we get paid by the word. I've made $1 million, so I'll stop now and allow you to ask all of your questions, of which I'm told there are many. But let me again say thank you for the opportunity to come back. I hope you understand the overview of history and your Ohio Constitution and our roots that let you know that you are truly connected to the judicial system in Ohio. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You got a line of questions. Let's get right to them.
Hey, first of all, it was very comprehensive and powerful speech.
Thank you.
I really liked it. My question is whether you can answer or not. In Ohio, about 15, 20 years ago, we had tort reform, which enabled us to buy liability insurance as physicians, and our premiums are not that high as compared to other states. So can you possibly answer, what's the status of that? I learned from OSMA, that is Ohio State Medical Association, that those are reforms that are at risk now. We may not have them in the near future, and then we may end up losing physicians coming to Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. What you're really speaking about is what happened in the past with the Ohio Supreme Court. It was the Toledo Blade in October of 2002 that did a cry to all of Ohioans, along with some others, about taking back the runaway court. There were 4, in the opinion of the major media outlets, who designated themselves a super legislative authority. They struck down tort reform measures that were coming out of the General Assembly, the first being, I believe, in 91, 94, and 98. And as a result of those measures, it is true, malpractice rates soared in Ohio to a point where even some practitioners who had never had a claim against them could not obtain malpractice insurance. One of them is a friend of mine. He's a surgeon in the small town of Marietta, where he was born. He went back to Marietta to serve as a general surgeon in his community at Marietta Memorial. He was riding the wave of the runaway juries and of the lack of ability of Ohio to have tort reform declared constitutional. He had never had a medical malpractice claim against him. He was one of 4 in a surgical practice. He went from 14 providers to 2 providers to one day being told they wouldn't insure him anymore. He was too high risk. His premium went from $20,000 a year to $125,000 a year. And his wife and he were mortgaging their home to pay for his malpractice insurance. I know this to be true because I heard his speech not long ago, a couple months ago, as he talked about those days. As a result of the change in what I believe is judicial restraint, tort reform was deemed constitutional in a case by the name of Arbino versus Johnson & Johnson in 2007. Since that time, that case has stood as precedent for the constitutionality of tort reform. Question of whether or not that ever gets struck down, that becomes who is sitting in those seats and makes those decisions at the time that the new case comes in. It is only precedent, and yes, precedent can be overturned. What Ohio didn't do is take the next step, is to do a constitutional amendment where it was part of the Ohio Constitution, those parameters of tort reform. Great question. Thank you for your question and the ability to talk about our history.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My friend Jack Zohary, who I don't know is here, would make a case that civics education is the worst neglected in our public schools. And this was just a marvelous introduction to the civics of our legislative, executive, and judicial branches in Ohio. So I thank you for that. I have a question, though, and it pertains to the question of the State of the Union. I happen to be an independent voter, not Democrat, not Republican. I like a lot of Republicans. I like a lot of Democrats. But I'm very worried about what I see as a rejection of the rule of law at the highest levels in the United States. Would you like to comment on what I perceive as being wrong and why I should change my point of view that the rule of law is perhaps being overlooked at the highest levels of government in the United States?
Well, thank you so much for the question. Let me begin by saying thank you for applauding civic education. It is something I pride myself in. I will go to any school, anytime, to give the speech you just heard, and I've given it a lot. So if you have an opportunity for me to step into a school system, please let me know. As it goes to the rule of law, I actually believe the rule of law is alive and well in the United States of America. And this is why I can affirmatively say that. When there has been times when presidents have overreached, while it might not be reported, it is certainly being done, that those who sit as leaders sue in federal court to roll back the executive power. The rule of law is recognized by them to say, you can't do this to us. You cannot set forth this executive power because you are stripping us of our power, that which was assigned to us by the United States Constitution. I know for a fact that Speaker Boehner initiated numerous lawsuits. I forget the original number, but it's somewhere between 78 and 92 actions were filed in the federal court system. I believe the rule of law is alive and well in the United States because we grow economically. And every year, the Heritage Foundation for the last 25 years has published an index of economic freedom. This year, marking their 25th anniversary, their index is some 500 plus pages long. But if you peruse it on the internet and you go to chapter 2, it talks about the first 4 factors they look at. Does a country have the rule of law? Is it honored in a fair, impartial manner? Does the government observe it? And does it truly protect property and contract rights? The rule of law is all about that. What are the rules of the game? Is there a law that says my property cannot be taken by him and I cannot take his property? Or if we have a contract, what is the application of the contract in its terms and how is it derived? But for those terms of this contract, you have a judge who sits in judgment to give effect based on the language that we have chosen to use in that contract. Much like statutory interpretation or interpretation of a provision of the Constitution, It goes to what were the terms that we chose, the definitions that we have. Do not fear. The rule of law is alive and well in the United States of America, and we grow economically, and we continue to be a shining example of a justice system that works. Thank you for the question. I think the rule of law is alive and well today.
Yeah. Great, thank you. With regard to the educational funding in the state that was ruled unconstitutional, I don't know, maybe has it been ruled that it is now constitutional? Has that ever been resolved? And then, secondly, when the Supreme Court makes a ruling that something is unconstitutional, presumably they are required to specify exactly why it is, so that the legislature knows what they need to do to change so that it would not, in those particular instances, would not continue to be in violation. So it wouldn't just simply, the court wouldn't simply rule that something is unconstitutional without further specificity or complete specificity as to why it's unconstitutional. That's a question.
Thank you so much. The DeRolf case is the number one case I'm asked about across Ohio. That is the case that declared school funding unconstitutional. There are, I think, 6 DeRolf cases as a result. What ended up happening in the last DeRolf case and declaring it unconstitutional, you say why it's unconstitutional, but you cannot tell the General Assembly how to go create it to make it constitutional. It goes back to square one. And it's them, the General Assembly, that they therefore re-begin those conversations with committees and struggling to figure out how to make the funding mechanism fit what is required under the Ohio Constitution. As it relates to decisions, I would hope that our decisions give clarity as to why we're declaring it unconstitutional. There are some judges that then use a dissent or a concurrence as a voice to say the General Assembly should look at this and should do X, Y, and Z. But to specifically tell them beyond why it's unconstitutional and how to fix it, it is not our purview. As I've stepped into all 88 counties multiple times in my 7 years of serving as a justice, I'm on my 5th time around all 88 counties. Many people say, why don't you just hold all of the members of the General Assembly in contempt and put them in jail until they actually write a new school funding statute? And I've actually said to them, as much as you would like that, I don't think I have the power to do that. I have the power to declare it unconstitutional, but it's clearly up to our voice, our box one, to say what it is that we will or won't do. And it's up to you to exercise your voice to tell them to do their job as you see it. Thank you.
So we can live with an unconstitutional school funding system in perpetuity, conceivably?
Well, we have been living with no new resolution. I know that Bob Cupp in the State House is working on something. I am not really versed as to what it is they're doing.
Thank you.
And the last question.
Judge, I know that the Supreme Court keeps statistics and how the percentage of cases, civil and criminal, go to trial. Last I heard, that was like 1%, which seems to be shocking. And of course, criminal defendants get public defenders. Could you comment on the percentage of cases filed? They may be litigation, but actually go to trial.
So I actually brought those with me because I'm usually asked this question. In 2018, in the Supreme Court, 1,858 cases were filed. In the appellate courts across Ohio, 8,445 were filed. In the Court of Common Pleas, a total of 622,765 were filed. The general division, and it's not broken down between criminal and civil, was 203,253, and domestic relations was 109,244, and probate was 85,787, and then in juvenile court was 224,481. Municipal and county court systems, the total is 2,378,744, with the division of county courts hearing 178,000, and then municipal courts hearing 2,200,743,000. And then when you looked at the percentages of cases that we hear, it was broken down to 54% is a criminal matter. I'm searching for my other page. 54% is a criminal matter. 4% is the practice of law. I'm sorry, 48% is criminal, 23% is miscellaneous, 8% is civil, 7% is the practice of law, and domestic relations, probate, and juvenile represent about 4% of what we hear. By and large, I'm going to read more criminal cases than any other case that comes before the Ohio Supreme Court.
But do you know how many actually go to trial, say, of common pleas cases?
I do not know the
Statistically.
division of who pleads out and who goes to a bench trial or jury trial, and I don't believe we keep those statistics.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. May God bless all of you.
I guess fortunately for me, I don't talk to very many judges, so I'm not exactly sure how to address you, but I guess Madam Justice would work.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you know about Rotary's work with polio, because we, in thanks for your being here, are going to make a contribution to our Polio Plus Fund in your name.
Thank you.
I also have a book about the history of Toledo, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Is Tony Packo's in here?
Probably. The next week's program, we are having the Ability Center making a presentation. That's with Amy Wachob from Goodwill Industries. That should be a good program. We have 3 meetings after today, or so after this meeting. The Water Service Committee is meeting in North Cape. The Peace Services Committee is in the Presque Isle, and International Services are in Waynesfield over here. Chuck, are you here?
I spent some time at home cleaning up the comedy corner this week. Here are a few leftovers. I like English. I'm good friends with 25 letters of the alphabet. I don't know why. I find it ironic that the colors red, white, and blue stand for freedom until they are flashing behind you. In today's news, a mime was injured last night after getting into a bar fight. The bouncer used extreme force and severed the mime's left arm. Fortunately, he still has the right to remain silent. And finally, I changed my password to incorrect, so whenever I forget it, the computer will say, your password is incorrect.
Thank you, Chuck. And as we leave today, just a comment. As you go out and begin your or continue your day, I just remind you to do your best and lift someone else up. We are adjourned. Could I have one of those cards? Yeah, but we don't do standing ovations often. Congratulations on being named 20 under 40.